Welcome back to Critical Hits Top 8 coverage here at the Hartford Convention Center 2017 Hartford Regional. Joe Brown, Brendan Lewis here. The request to bring us back because we were just having so much fun in that last round. We're doing both top 8 matches that we have here. We said that Steven and Josh were not the only Northeast players left. That's because we're bringing you our last competitor from the Northeast. He is from Long Island, so another New York, New Jersey based player type, you know, whatever. Sohaib Mufti, who is, I see him a lot actually at our premier challenges in New York, and he's more of a quiet player, but he's a very nice guy, definitely on that cerebral kind. He's not like in your face or anything like that, which I respect. And he's going against the Invader that we actually saw on stream with a very interesting team yesterday in Alberto Lara.
Yeah, and Alberto, probably one of the, I don't think it's a stretch at all to say that he is one of the best players in the country. He is a well-known Invader who likes to travel across the country. He actually wrote a nice travel guide for all of you VGC players that are looking to find a nice, cheap, or efficient way to get to other places in the country or even other places in the world to attend. So he has helped a lot of people to be able to travel across the country the same way that he does to get to regionals and help his region invade others. And of course, he is a phenomenal player, a very scary Invader who, like I said, one of the best players in the country, does have a really cool team. And it looks like with all the invading that he does, it's like he's constantly in a top cut. I'm like, oh, let me check Twitter. There was a regional. Oh, okay, Alberto, one of the spots. There he is. And then the other 7. But he just feels like he's constantly cutting. And I do believe he is a regional champion as well. He has won in the past. Just a phenomenal player.
He's a North American drifter. He just goes where the CP takes him. That's how Alberto works. He's always top cutting, always one of the top players at every event that he goes to, and we can see why, because he's running a somewhat unconventional team here and brought so much success where he's in top 8 right now. If you remember from yesterday, he has that Supersonic Sky Strike Salamence.
Yeah, that's a really cool set, and I've seen that one before. They like to, you know, do setup stuff with Dragon Dance and then use that really huge same type attack bonus attack. But not only did he use the Z move, he used Fly. He actually used Fly. A lot of times, you know, we see the same thing with those bounce Gyarados, that it's more of just a one-off. You get that huge big attack off once and then you kind of use your other moves, or you cycle in and out for the Intimidate utility. But he actually used Fly. He used it. He went up, he came down, he picked up a knockout with Fly. You never see that. And it was super cool.
Your regular you know, playthrough of the game. You see it all the time.
I was like, I was not casting that game. I was sitting in the back just like popping off on my own. I was like, oh my god, he just used Fly. But it was really cool thing to see with that Salamence, and he just plays his team super phenomenally. He was known for a big part of the season for using the Tapunium Koko with Nature's Madness and using that giant big fist to come down and take 25% off of one of those bulky Pokemon like Porygon 2. But he has adapted his team a little bit. He's been changing it constantly throughout the year, and we do see now that he has a new team with 2 dragons, and he has a Gengar, a really cool team, and we did see it featured a little bit yesterday. And of course we do have Sohaib. I've been just kind of like fawning over Alberto here. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, who's running a team of Tapu, Lele, Garchomp, Arcanine, Celestech, Ninetales, and Xurkitree. And of course the combination of several of those Pokemon was on Zelda's team, Sam Pendelis' team, that was runner-up. We saw Ray Rizzo using it yesterday, the runner-up at Worlds, with that Ninetales that helps to set up Aurora Veil, which makes it safer for Xurkitree to set up those tail glows and be that huge threatening sweeper with that big special attack stat.
Right, Arcanine and Ninetales definitely help out Xurkitree massively by giving it that extra bulk that it needs, and Arcanine's Intimidate lowering the opponent's attack stat. So basically it just helps Xurkitree have more time to set up that tail glow and just, you know, destroy everything on the field. But Xurkitree, unless it has an option to deal with these 2 dragon types, Ninetales might actually be a better option, as both of those Pokemon are 4 times weak to ice.
Right.
So Sohaib Mufti, Alberto Lara, New York, Long Island specifically, against the West Coast here. Our second top 8 match of our Hartford Regionals. This is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully it's back and forth and we get 3 games. Sohaib opens with Celestech and Alolan Ninetales, as Alberto leads Tapu, Koko, and Gengar. We actually did not see him bring Gengar on stream in his match yesterday.
Right, and Gengar we haven't really seen at all this season. It is something something that kind of, you know, in theory maybe works pretty well. It uses those big same type of attack bonus sludge bombs to hit all those fairies that we have running around, like any of the guardian deities, the Kokos, the Leles, the Feenies, the Bulus, and of course things like Ninetales and Whimsicott all take a lot of damage from a big sludge bomb. But also, one of the Pokemon that has just recently kind of risen into prominence is that Metagross, which does not appreciate Shadow Balls.
So Ninetales is going to switch out here into Garchomp. So Garchomp can hit both of Alberto's Pokemon for a super effective Earthquake next turn, but the Dazzling Gleam doesn't do a lot of damage to Celesteela, and not too much to Garchomp either, as a Sludge Bomb, another special attack into Garchomp, and both those don't even bring it under 50% HP, but Heavy Slam, critical hit. Gengar, not the most bulky Pokemon in the world, so it might not have mattered. Does stick around anyway because of its focus stats, but not for long, as Ninetales from the bench gets the knockout because of the ice.
Yeah, from downtown with the hail, Ninetales picks up that knockout, and we do see the focus sash revealed there. Having not seen too many Gengars this season, I was kind of wondering what exactly item it was going to be running. A lot of people early in the season had talked about something like a Choice Scarf Gengar, so that you could outspeed and knock out Tapu Koko. You can outspeed Scarf Tapu Leles as well, and then if you're running something like Hidden Power Ice, you can even outspeed and knock out certain Garchomps. But of course it is here running Focus Sash. Not going to matter too much with that hail on the field, as we do see Alberto's first Dragon hit the field and finds itself in a pretty good position after intimidating both Pokemon on Sohaib's side of the field and being levitating so that it can't be hit by an Earthquake.
Right, and if Tapu Koko can find a way to deal with Garchomp on this turn, that would definitely help out Alberto. But Salamence, if it goes for a Supersonic Sky Strike, not going to do the massive amount of damage that we saw in his game yesterday.
Right, and we do know that a lot of these Salamence, I'm not sure if we actually saw Alberto use it yesterday, but they do like to be using Dragon Dance so that they can set up and then use that really big Nuke Z move coming off the same type attack bonus and Salamence's huge attack stat. But Sohaib knows that this is an option that's on the table and wants to get his own Intimidate in and save Garchomp for later.
Right, Arcanine gonna lower the attack stat for that Salamence, so if he did go for a Z move, it is not going to do as much damage. Tapu Koko, Nature's Madness, that will take away 50% of Celesteela's remaining HP, so that will put it into yellow there. Dragon Dance, as you were talking about, Brendan, the Intimidate, not too worried about that because Dragon Dance brings its attack stat back up, and a Heavy Slam from Celesteela into Salamence does a good amount of damage there, and everyone's going to get buffeted by the hail.
Right, and Sohaib electing to go for a Heavy Slam, I was kind of wondering if, because Salamence can be such a strong, bulky Pokemon, whether he would prefer to go for a Leech Seed onto it, but does want to just take the chip damage so that maybe later in the game he can have maybe his Ninetales come in and clean it up. But he has to be very careful now, as even though Salamence is now at neutral stage, it doesn't have the attack boost because the Intimidate offset the Dragon Dance. It is the fastest thing on the field, and it can use Supersonic Sky Strike, and depending on how this Arcanine is trained, it could just be wiped off the field with one of those huge, huge attacks.
That's definitely going to be, excuse me, what Sohaib has to worry about here. But most Arcanine do run pretty bulky, but most Arcanine don't run up against Supersonic Sky Strike. So
right.
Sohaib might not even know the damage calculations. He might not have been prepared for that.
Right, and that's one of the advantages of using some lesser used Pokemon, or lesser used sets in the case of this Salamence, as we have seen some of those bulky Assault Vest ones running around, but of course this is not Assault Vest, as we've just seen it use Dragon Dance.
Right, Garchomp switching into that Celesteela slot, and Arcanine, it will protect here.
Oh.
Salamence, beautiful call, Dragon Dancing again, expecting Arcanine to protect there, did not want to waste his Z move into a protect, as Thunderbolt into Garchomp will do no damage because it is immune to Thunder type attacks. So now next turn, now Alberto is finally +1 in his attack stat. It took 2 Dragon Dances to do it, but that can definitely do secure a knockout on Arcanine.
Absolutely, that's a great play by Alberto, realizing that he's still really not threatened by anything that Sohaib has on the field. Firing that Thunderbolt into the Celesteela slot to prevent any sort of a Heavy Slam into Salamence, and if Arcanine had wanted to put a Flare Blitz into that Salamence slot, Alberto wasn't too worried about that, so he takes the opportunity to get another Dragon Dance, and now what Sohaib has to be worried about about is as those attack stats starts to go up, he can use Earthquake and do that spread damage. But it looks like he's going for a Z move here. Here it is, Joe, the Supersonic Sky Strike, Salamence to the skies.
Oh, this is so exciting. This is probably going into that Celesteela slot, which was originally Arcanine, so it's not doing as much damage, but because Celesteela's health is so low already, actually,
it's a Garchomp.
It's a switch. This is absolutely going to pick up the knockout on Garchomp. He's going down this turn. Great call. Sohaib knowing that the Celesteela
and a
is not
Thunderbolt.
worth it. And Alberto, this is a double knockout here, so 2 great calls on Alberto this turn, clearing Sohaib's side of the field.
Oh my gosh, the Salamence is starting to take off here, literally and figuratively, as it does have those boosts, the +1 attack, the +2 speed. It uses that Supersonic Sky Strike into that Garchomp slot, and he calls that switch in correctly. Instead of trying to go for a Nature's Madness onto that Arcanine, he elects to go for the Thunderbolt and hits that Celesteela switch in, taking the double knockout. And this Salamence is not done yet. It is still the fastest thing on the field. It is back down to +0 stages of attack, but it is still a threat. He can use that Earthquake if he wants to do something like break a potential Focus Sash on Ninetales and get some damage onto Arcanine, or he can just start flying and play some mind games with Sohaib.
Right, Ninetales threatens Salamence, but you can't hit Salamence when he's up in the sky, when he's flying for that turn. So if Alberto goes for that move, I don't think he needs to because he's in a pretty strong spot, but that would be a pretty funny way of avoiding the incoming Blizzard. Arcanine protecting on this turn, doesn't want to get hit by whatever.
And there he goes.
And there is the fly. He's flying over Route 8 to get back to the Poké Center, and in time, when he lands, he'll hit Ninetales and knock it out, or the Arcanine, but paralyzing Ninetales actually here. So,
and he dodges the Icy Wind.
So it was actually a great call to fly that turn, not just for Flare, but to avoid the Icy Wind lowering his speed.
Right, and if he calls this, if he's flying into that Arcanine slot, it's not going to be able to protect from the fly since he got the fly here on this turn. And Tapu Koko being faster, he's going to be able to double target that Arcanine with a Thunderbolt and a fly and pick up the knockout as long as he doesn't proc that berry. Ninetales itself does still have the option to protect should it want to do that, but this fly is going to hit, and he leaves it open.
So
oh my gosh.
Into Ninetales will get that knockout. So Sohaib is now down to just his Arcanine, who is not able to protect this turn, but there is no electric terrain set up, so that attack does not do as much as it should. The Arcanine Flare Blitz into Tapu Koko is
and it's
not
gonna take
enough
that.
for a knockout. This is a bulkier Tapu Koko that we've seen here. Obviously, more supportive with the Sky Drop and things like that, and the Nature's Madness. Not trying to do as much damage, but Arcanine is in a 1v3 situation right now, and we're going to see game 2.
Oh my goodness, that Salamence has me so excited right now. Oh man, that was so cool. He used that extra turn that he was provided to get the second Dragon Dance up so that he was at the +1 stage of attack even after Intimidate. He correctly targets with that Supersonic Sky Strike into the Garchomp. He gets that Thunderbolt onto Celesteela, and then he flies the next turn. We are seeing why exactly Alberto is in top cut and one of the best players in the world and in the country right now.
Absolutely. This is such a fun team to watch. Even the Gengar, who didn't really get to accomplish much in there, has the potential to threaten a lot of Sohaib's Pokemon. I don't see, as an adjustment for Sohaib, maybe the Celesteela isn't, unless he can start getting, I think he needs to bring it early and start getting those Leech Seeds, because Salamence was not worried about Intimidates because it had Dragon Dance. It could re-raise its attack stat. So if Alberto's going to keep his Pokemon in for a while, you might as well set up the Leech Seeds to start chipping away at some of their HP.
Yeah, I think Celesteela being one of the few things that's not very threatened by that Salamence that we just saw put in so much work might be a way in for him. Another option that he could consider is really focusing on getting up that Aurora Veil. If he's got the Aurora Veil on the field and Celesteela, like you were talking about, might be able to do a lot of work for him. He's not going to be threatened by the Thunderbolts from that Tapu Koko, which is pretty clearly not running an offensive item. We've seen it do a lot of different things with the Nature's Madness, and generally Tapu Kokos that are running Nature's Madness are not running something like a Life Orb or a Choice Specs. We saw the Salamence Z move, so it's probably not an Electrium Z. So Celesteela is going to be able to take a lot of those attacks, even though they're super effective. effective. And another thing that I'm thinking about here for Sohaib is I'm thinking about bringing Xurkitree, which is one of those things that definitely doesn't mind those flying type attacks from Salamence, and even is going to be able to take an Earthquake from it, even though it's not a same type attack bonus. The one thing that's making me wary about that, though, is I don't believe we saw Alberto reveal his last Pokemon, and if that's Garchomp, that's going to be a big problem for Xurkitree.
Right, absolutely. The Xurkitree cannot handle Garchomp as well as it would like to. So let's get into Game 2 here. Sohaib Mufti and Alberto Lara in top 8. Alberto put on an impressive show in Game 1 with Supersonic Sky Strike, Dragon Dance, Fly, just running the gambit with this Salamence, doing so much. And Sohaib does make an adjustment here, opening a 1/1 Ninetales and Celesteela, as Alberto's lead is Gengar and Tapu Koko.
Right, and it looks like Sohaib did exactly what we told him to do here. He's going with that Ninetales and the Celesteela mode. And like we said, if that Aurora Veil is up, Celesteela is going to take a little bit of a chunk from Thunderbolt, but definitely not enough to pick up a knockout, barring some kind of a critical hit. And even then, I'm not sure that it would do enough to knock out that Celesteela from full health. Gengar is going to have its Focus Sash broken again by this hail, so it's either going to have to leave the field, or it's going to have to try and get enough done on turn 1 to justify having that Sash broken.
Gengar is 1 point.
Oh, and he's just going to pick up the knockout.
Gengar is 1 point faster in speed than Ninetales is, so it actually runs first, gets off the Sludge Bomb successfully, knocks out Ninetales. Ninetales is unable to set up Aurora Veil.
Oh, and it's going to live. Oh, and the Curse Body.
So Curse Body, if you make in contact with Gengar, that will disable the move that you used on it. So Celesteela can't use its most important attacking option unless it switches out, which is Heavy Slam.
Right, and in the transition from Generation 6 to Generation 7, Gengar did lose one of its signature abilities in Levitate and received instead a very Ghost-type oriented ability in that Cursed Body. And we do see that take over here as Celesteela now doesn't have its main attacking move. And we also see Gengar actually survive the turn 1 in this game, as that critical hit actually did matter in Game 1. I was kind of wondering about that because Celesteela is very heavy, Gengar is very light, so it's doing max damage with that Heavy Slam, but that critical hit did matter, and Gengar, everything that it's getting done here, its job was to knock out Ninetales, and now that it's done that, everything else that it could do here is just gravy for Alberto.
Right, it can go down now. Gengar, many trainers consider losing Levitate and getting Cursed Body both a nerf and a buff at the same time, depending on your perspective, but for Alberto, it was actually excellent here. Gonna protect, will stick around because the hail damage will not be enough to knock him out. Xurkitree also protecting Tapu Koko's attack going into that Xurkitree as Celesteela's Flamethrower into Gengar's attack there. So the only damage we're going to see is the hail.
Yeah, and good protects by both players there. It looks like Gengar might only have 1 turn left here, so it's going to have to attack prior to it going down, unless Alberto feels like he really needs its speed and its power for later in the game. I suspect that we're going to see him go for something like a Nature's Madness and a Sludge Bomb into the Xurkitree slot. Now that it's protected, he can very cleanly double target it, and I'm not sure what he's going to be able, even if he tried to switch something into the back, maybe like in from the back, maybe like a Garchomp, but he has to be very careful with that Xurkitree because it's going to be incredibly important in combination with Celesteela to take care of that Salamence.
Nature's Madness from Tapu Koko. Now, the second fastest Pokemon is Gengar. Sludge Bomb, correct prediction for Alberto with Sludge Bomb, knocking it out. So Xurkitree goes down. That is 2 Pokemon for Sohaib that have been knocked out without even being able to touch Alberto. Leech Seed finally landed onto Tapu Koko, so Celesteela will start recovering a little bit of Tapu Koko's HP there. And the only damage as Gengar finally is knocked out this turn that we see onto Koko is from the Leech Seed and the hail. No attacks onto Tapu Koko.
Oh, and Gengar has been did more than it was asked to do there, able to pick up a second knockout, although we saw by kind of the way that Alberto knows that hail's coming, he goes back to Gengar in turn 1. He's okay with trading that Gengar for the Ninetales, but instead this game it's able to pick up 2 knockouts, and now we get to see that Salamence take the field again.
Bringing back Alberto's MVP on his team, Salamence, intimidating Sohaib's Pokemon, but not too effective at this point, as Celesteela can't even use the Heavy Slam, so it's not like it's going to attack for a lot of damage regardless of the Intimidate. Tapu Lele does set up Psychic Terrain, so a Psychic into Tapu Koko most likely is enough for a knockout.
Right, and Tapu Lele is kind of having, it does have a very interesting kind of matchup against this particular kind of Salamence. A lot of time when we see those bulky Salamence that are only carrying, you know, Draco Meteor and Flamethrower as attacks, Tapu Lele matches up very well against that Salamence. But in this position, it absolutely does not want to take a Supersonic Sky Strike, and Sohaib doesn't have his Arcanine in the back to try and switch it in and get that Intimidate down and try and prevent it from doing as much damage. That Tapu Lele is going to go right down if a Supersonic Sky Strike hits that target.
Tapu Lele might need to try to bait a Protect out on the correct turn so that it can
This is going to be a Sky Drop.
Sky Strike. But Tapu Lele protects. Did Koko go for a Sky Drop onto the... No! Tapu Koko actually does Nature's Madness into that Tapu Lele slot there, but unsuccessful due to Protect, and Leech Seed goes into Salamence's Protect. So this turn, now this turn, is it best for Alberto to go for a Sky Drop finally?
I think he's just going to go right for the Supersonic Sky Strike. What he needed to do there is be doing enough to Tapu Lele that it's still being threatened on this turn and also the next turn, and now all he needs to do is go for that Supersonic Sky Strike, and it looks like Sohaib's only out here might just be going for a double Protect. I think if Alberto wanted to be really safe, he could prevent the double Protect from being an out for him by going for a Sky Drop onto the Tapu Lele and Dragon Dancing, and then next turn when Tapu Lele is, oh, you know what, actually that's totally wrong because Salamence would be faster. So this is going to be a Supersonic Sky Strike turn, I think, for Alberto, and if he knocks out that Lele, that might just be it.
Alberto is going to switch in his own Celesteela, revealing
He's going for
his fourth Pokemon there.
Oh, he doesn't get it.
Double Protect, unfortunately for Sohaib, does not land the Double Protect. It is only a 30% chance of getting 2 Protects in a row. So this will be a full-powered Supersonic Sky Strike.
And Tapu Lele does have pretty decent special defense, but it does not have great defense. And this Salamence is in all likelihood going to be able to take out that Tapu Lele. And then Alberto is just going to have that 3v1 against Celesteela, and down goes Tapu Lele. This Salamence is incredible.
Celesteela is able finally to use Heavy Slam again, but hits his brethren in the opposing Celesteela for actually 0 damage because of Leftover's recovery. So it was somewhat of a it's a difficult position for Celesteela because he couldn't do much to Salamence and he was threatened by Tapu Koko.
Right, and it looks like we're going to be in for a little bit of a long end game here. Of course, Sohaib does look like his back's against the wall here, but where there's a Celesteela, there's a way, and he's going to try and get some of his Leech Seeds down, start whittling away some of that damage, and what you're going to see Alberto try to do is every time he takes a Leech Seed, he's going to switch out, get some damage, and then switch back in.
Well, actually, Celesteela's not switching out here on this turn. It's setting up Substitute, which is huge because that means that that Sohaib's Celesteela is going to have to attack Celesteela twice with 2 different Flamethrowers to knock it out there, and that's just going to be too much time for Sohaib to come back because Tapu Koko can hit Celesteela super effective. There is the Thunderbolt into Celesteela. Sohaib does tank it, is sticking around, but just one last moment of frustration for Sohaib. Gets paralyzed, does proc the Aguav Berry, so will recover its HP, but with the paralysis against Alberto's 3 Pokemon, and it has now been Leech Seeded with Alberto behind the Substitute, this looks like Alberto is moving on to top 4.
Right, and it looks like it's been all but sealed up here. The revelation of that Substitute being the final dagger into Sohaib's tournament run here. It's really a Celesteela versus Celesteela matchup. That Substitute, when one has it and one doesn't, really turn the tides. And it looks like Alberto has trained his Celesteela to be just a little bit quicker than a lot of other Celesteelas so that he is able to get that Substitute up, and should he see another Celesteela, he's substituting before any Leech Seed comes in. The Surrender is going to come out from Sohaib, and Alberto with that phenomenal Salamence, awesome team. The Gengar is going to take the 2-0 victory over Sohaib, and he is going to join Stephen Mia in top 4 at Hartford Regionals.
Yep, so we've already shown you 2 of our final top 4 players. We're going to give you updated. We're going to do a quick break, but just another analysis here. Sohaib, a great job getting the top 8, representing the Northeast region well as a Long Island player coming up here. Had so many awesome things on his team like the Circuitry and the Ninetales, Tapu, Lele, but it's just he wasn't able to get it set up successfully because Salamence was such a threat from Alberto.
Right, and we saw why, and Alberto has been known as a great team builder here within the VG here. Why being able to construct a team that maybe has some lesser used Pokemon or some lesser used sets can give you a huge advantage against a lot of different players when you're not prepared for a unique combination of Pokemon. For example, like that Gengar, there aren't a lot of ways to be able to knock out a Ninetales on turn 1, right? And Alberto has put together a strategy to be able to do that and then be able to bring in things like his Salamence, like his Garchomp that are no longer threatened by a Ninetales that's not on the field anymore. So really some great team building. He's got a great game plan for Ninetales, even though to the untrained eye does look like it would be a huge threat to his team.
Right, and I do want to ask, when I see Sohaib at our next Premier Challenge, I would ask him with the Ninetales, knowing that Garchomp is 1 speed point higher naturally than Ninetales is, if he was expecting Garchomp, or excuse me, Gengar, not Garchomp, if he was expecting Gengar to attack on that first turning game too, because it is somewhat common knowledge that Gengar is faster, so it automatically threatened Ninetales right from the get-go.
Yeah, and it seemed like he was almost forced to make a little bit of a read there, you know, based on what he ended up revealing in the back, that Circuitry and the Tapu Lele. He didn't really leave himself that Garchomp or the, Arcanine in the back to be able to switch in and take a potential double target. So he tried to make a little bit of a read there, thinking, you know what, maybe he's going to miss a switch target, thinking I'm going to protect. I've shown that protect on Ninetales, but instead Alberto says, no, I don't really care about your Celestial on the field. I'm going to gun right for your Ninetales, and if I don't knock it out on turn 1, I'll knock it out on turn 2.
Absolutely. So that we've seen Alberto twice on stream this weekend. It's been so much fun. We know 2 of our finalists. We'll get the other information to you. I'm sure our other 2 top 8 matches have ended. So as soon as we can, we will start top 4 coverage here at the Hartford Regionals. This is Critical Hit.